So, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. It's your girls. We're back. This this set of ladies, you're rocking with Anita and Andrea and me. I'm Wendy. We are about to get into some dicey topics here. Like this conversation, we're gonna have to use the word allegedly a lot because there's so much happening in the court system. We ain't trying to have nobody come and sue us. So, but we still want to be transparent and keep it real from a perspective of a believer that's relevant, that's living in the world today. Like we have eyes and ears, we feel, we see, but we still have to come from the perspective of the kingdom. And that's exactly what we're going to do on today. Amen. That's so gospel when people say on today. I hate that. On today.
Church.
Yeah, church. That makes it fancy when you say on today. So anytime you can say on today, say it. And it'll make you sound fancy. Will make you sound fancy. Okay. So I was having a conversation with my sister and my son the other day, and I'm so fortunate to have my sister with me. If y'all can't tell, we have that one that way. There she goes. Yeah, that's my sister, right? That's my sister. We have the same face. She has on glasses, and I don't, but we still have the same face. We're sisters, blood sisters, and we were having a conversation with my son, and it just kind of like sparked into this whole big thing. I was waiting for the fireworks, they didn't come, but it just kind of like blew up into this whole big thing that got me thinking. And I was scrolling, you know how you just be scrolling on Instagram, and I seen this interview with Young Miami. It was an older one, and I can't remember who the gentle person was that she was talking to. I can't remember who the person was that she was in an interview with. But they were talking about, she was bringing up how, you know, she feels kind of speaking up after the Diddy stuff, the scandal that's happening with Mr. Diddy. And she was saying how she never saw that side of him. You know, like when she got with him, he was like reformed or changed. What she knew of him was just, you know, as he was on this side of that dark, you know, era of his life. And I was asking them, like, how do we feel about that as believers when we saw him? And now, mind you, all of this is alleged. Okay, we saw. I grew up in the height of Bad Boy.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I was clubbing. I was a clubber,
Ma'am.
a faithful Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was going to be at the club. I've had invitations to all white parties that were hosted by said suspect. You know what I mean? Like that type of I grew up in that era. So we knew what was allegedly happening at those parties. Like we knew the debauchery that would follow. We knew that you could be on the outskirts and observe and have a good time and leave. We knew that you could be thrown into the thick of things. Like there were levels to it, right? But then I also watched said suspect kind of transition into fatherhood and being a man and growing up and coming into this love era and seeking forgiveness and going to church and admitting like I came out of the dark period, you know, like we saw all of that, right?
Yeah.
Only to now be in this space where there's so many investigations and all this stuff. against him. And then you have someone who was his girlfriend. I put that in air quotes because I don't know if they ever labeled their relationship, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But she was saying that she never saw that side of him, you know. And it just made me wonder, like, okay, if he did all that back then and we were rocking with him, we just didn't know it, right? And he's here now. All of that stuff has come out. How do we feel about just canceling or not forgiving a person? Where do we stand? And this is absolutely from the lens of a Christian, because the world is going to world. The world is going to world. They're going to do what the world does. They're going to cancel you and all that other thing, all those other things. But where do we stand as believers when it comes to, because I've heard believers saying some things that I'm like, now I don't get down with human trafficking. I don't get down with sexual assault. I don't get down with, I'm trying to figure out what words that I can use that won't get flagged on YouTube. You know what I mean? I don't get down with those things, non consensual forms of intimacy. I don't get down with that. But where do we stand as believers, knowing we, most of the time, y'all knew what was happening at that stuff? Y'all know what's going on in Hollywood. That's why y'all tell us not to go to them places and watch that stuff. You know, but now y'all want to be all on this side of it. But you wasn't then. You was singing all the songs, doing all the dances, and being down with it. So what is you guys' take on, maybe not this situation, but a similar situation? But what is you guys' take on this topic in general?
It's very complex because I think a lot of times we equate, even though we may not say it and we know the different definitions, but we equate forgiveness with acceptance of
Yeah.
lifestyle or acceptance of what happened. And they're two totally different things because Jesus died for so that we could be forgiven because of that particular sin or those particular sins. So the sinner and the sin is separate, even though we that's what we deem people by their mistakes and by their sins and everything. So I think it's a lot of layers to it because you know it's like, okay, so we have this justice system so people can pay for their crimes, even though sometimes that ain't working right. But it's supposed to be in place to, uh, you know, help execute justice. And from a Christian point of view, I would say, as a whole, we still condemn. From my observation, we still condemn. I'm not saying everybody because there are some people that are mature and can see through the eyes of God and see through the eyes of love. But I mean, that person is still a creation of God, still has the breath of God in them. God doesn't see it the same. God still loves that person, no matter how horrific the sin or the crime or whatever it was, he still loves that person. I think it's us who has the issue being human, separating that to forgive because of that. I don't know, I'm not that's not right. I'm not gonna accept it. That ain't fair. It sure is not right. It sure is not fair. It sure is horrific. But if we talking about Christian and we've named Jesus our Lord, then we have to follow what he said to do, which listen, I still have some struggles with that. I'm sure a lot of people do. So it's not I'm not even saying, "Oh, you're so wrong if you don't forgive in this way." I understand. But if we're just talking about the kingdom perspective, what we should be doing, then we do need better forgiveness. We live in a cancel culture where you do it don't even have to be that bad. You could do a little something little misdemeanor or less, and they will cancel you.
Hmm.
I mean, you wear the wrong shade of lipstick, and they're gonna cancel you. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? But forgiveness, that's a big key. And it's not always, if you're the person that was the victim, you need to forgive for yourself, you know. But again, it's a very complex matter. That's what I would say starting off.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really good.
I think I agree with Anita. It's a very hard thing to weigh and balance in humanity.
Yeah.
I think from a human perspective that our we deal with morality and God deals with righteousness. And everyone's, to me, in my opinion, our morality scales are different. Everyone's morality scales are different. And it's so if I've been in the same role as when the allegations first came out about Diddy, if I have been in the same role as his ex girlfriend or, whoever he was, the significant other, then my morality scale would be different, I think. It would shape the view of what I would consider moral just because of my experience as a human. And so all of us, there are certain things that I would a deal breaker and completely wrong for me that another person is like, oh, nah, it's just a little lie I'm telling to get over here or things like that. I'm probably making this more trivial than the whole situation is, but just to kind of put it in perspective, like I would never do that. I would never let the right situation present itself. So none is righteous but God. None is righteous but God.
Good. That was good, Andrea.
So I think what the lens has to be is that you are judging a person based on your morality. And God ain't concerned about your morality.
Come on now.
That is so. That'll preach right there. We can hold a conference.
Come on now.
We can stop right here and raise an offering.
Come on.
Come on. That's a revival.
The ushers
That's a
will
2-week revival. Ushers will serve in the back. Cue up the organ. That will preach right there. And if I had to title this this episode, it would be, what does God say about cancel culture? How does God feel about cancel culture? That's really what the question is. Nita, you brought up cancel culture, and I was like, that's what the title of this is. How does God feel about cancel culture? Like, I think if I'm looking at, and I'll use this lightly because I don't want to disrespect anyone, but when all of the stuff was coming up about Bill Cosby, there was like a rift in the Black community. And you could see it because a lot of us were holding on to Mr. Pudding Pop. But then some of us were triggered by the things that had happened to us in our lives. And I am a survivor of sexual assault. And a lot of the women around me are as well. So I, had a lot of, therapy, healing, and growth through that process. So I was able to process it a little different when I looked at his scenario and just kind of the stories around what happened, the things he was actually charged with, the things that other women had alleged, and all of that stuff. I was like, man, that was horrible. But it sounded like, this is my opinion, it sounded like them hammers was party. Now, slipping and making in somebody's drink ain't never right. It's never right. But back in the day, it was super common, and you would hear older men school younger men, and it was a culture of it. So I feel like, he was caught in the throes of society coming to a consciousness about how wrong that was. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But here was my question when all of that was happening. And I'm sorry, Lord, I love your man of God, because you said he was a man after your own heart. But my question was, well, then what about David? Because he ordered Bathsheba to come to him. She did not have a choice. She did not consent on what happened. So what do we say about God's man? We still embrace him, We read all his books, love him,
The percent- every-
everything about him. Sing it loud. We sing David's songs every Sunday.
And he ordered her husband's death.
ordered her husband's
Right.
death. And
So
that was
he could.
second for him.
So there are terms and labels that we could attach to King David, who was a man after God's own heart, that we still embrace. But then you have, things like Mr. Cosby and what he's done and all of that. Like, we can't watch the Cosby Show no more. That was my show. That was my show. And this is not me being insensitive to anyone who was walked through, sexual assault, being taken against their will, being abused as a child, because I understand that. I've had to walk through healing in that regards my own self. So I completely understand that. My question is, where do we draw the line with this cancel culture? Because it's everywhere, and it's not just Bill Cosby. It's everywhere.
So I think, do you want to go, Nita?
No, go ahead.
So I think, going back to what I previously said, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, I think cancel culture is based on our own individual morality. And so that you're canceled. If I base my standards, anything you do based on my morality, Wendy's canceled, Anita is canceled, I'd be canceling my own self. Like, I think it's just based on the personal standards that we are creating this culture on. And is it fair? I think we need to learn to agree to disagree more. And that's what's happening. I think we're all, and I'm gonna get hated for this. This is just my opinions. I think at some level we're all throwing these temper tantrums, and we want a resolution on our tantrums, but it's not really getting to the root of what's icking you. What's the problem? What's the root of why you feel this way? What's the root of why you feel this person needs to be, like, their whole life means nothing? Now, I'm not saying, because I know we brought up some issues here, I'm not saying anything that's been alleged or a person has done that has victimized someone else is correct. But I also have to look at the fact that you're saying this whole person is like, throw them in the trash. That's what cancel culture seems like to me.
It is.
Its whole entire being in the trash because of what they've done. Should they be punished? Yes, I do agree. There should be some level of punishment. But now we're just taking everything and putting it in the trash. Everything is in the trash. You bother me? Trash. You do this? Trash. And I just think that's not a lens that we should be looking at. Because then who's gonna be in the world to live with? Who you gonna marry?
Mm-hmm.
Like who are you gonna be able to do life with? If that's the basis of how we're looking at people. And I know that's not popular opinion, but just the way the culture seems to form itself and live through, it just seems like we're barking at each other, but there's no real resolute of what's going on. And if, to me, sometimes cancel culture, we need to cancel our favorite brands. We need to cancel our favorite makeup people, our clothing brands, the cars we drive. If we have the structure of cancel culture applied to all of our life, everybody gonna be naked and bald headed. So I knew that was a bit extreme. I'm going to with that comment. I know I am. But I'm just like, because there are things that happen industry-wise, corporate-wise, that we do not know about that would knock our morality scale right off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we continue to buy these brands. We continue to support them. We continue, and I'm not saying that you don't, because I am my own person, okay? And we be out here and we be boycotting and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, like, you'll have to do that for everything.
Hmm.
You have to do that for everything, for every brand. If you're gonna start doing it, do it for everybody. If that's how we doing it.
Period.
My
Nita,
opinion.
that's really good. And if you have to be a broken record and say get your point across, girl, because it matters and it's a good point. Okay. Nita, let me ask you this though, and not to cut you off. If you wanted to answer this, you can come back and answer this. I want to ask you though specifically because we haven't really we touched on the celebrity, we touched on kind of corporate a little bit, alluded to it. But I want to ask Nita, uh, with regards to the church, how does Jesus feel about cancel culture? And I'm talking about like these religious leaders that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious leader. It can be a local person in your church that, is going through something. What is your thought process behind that?
Yeah, I like that better. What's my thought process? um, I okay. The church is still tricky because um, I think that we still we still have a measurement of morality and integrity that we have set, which I can't say that all of it is off,
Yeah.
but if you go back to just the 70s and 80s and you was asking for money the wrong way, you were canceled. I can think of a few people that were canceled. But today, everybody got their Cash App on everything they're doing, so it's accepted now. It's like Andrew said, everybody has their level of morality. I think people are canceled because of different preferences, different belief systems, different ways they were raised up. There's a whole spectrum of why people are canceled in the church. The old terminology would be blackballed uh,
Yep.
in old schools, and that's not
Mhm.
to be vulgar. That's really what they called it.
Yeah.
Um, where the preachers, you wasn't like you were ousted. You wasn't going to go on these
Mm-mm.
main circuits of preaching if that happened, and that was definitely a form of cancel culture. They just didn't
Yeah.
call it that at that time. So I honestly believe that we need to embrace more of seeing people through God's eyes,
Hmm.
because the scripture says all have sinned and fallen short. All have sinned. What's all mean? All, everybody. There's no exception to that. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Everybody has. And everybody, I mean, let me not say that. I'll just say that I don't feel like there's um the way that we cancel people. I honestly don't believe that's God's way. God knows how to judge. God knows how to vindicate. He knows how to bring justice. Do we need to keep order in our places? Sure. But keeping order versus canceling somebody, that can look like two different things, but we've
Yes.
we've made it look the same.
It's
We got
same.
to have order in the house, God, and you're gonna do that. Well, if a person is overtaken by a fall, restore such a one. And
Such a
I don't
one.
Come
see
on.
you restoring.
Yes.
That's this from my observation of being a pew baby, being raised up in church for
Hmm.
50 years, and like, come on now, like,
Hmm.
restore such a one, restore
That's deep.
them,
Yeah.
pour back into them, get them back into the fold. Because I used to say, like, now if this person in church gets sat down, as we would call it, sat down, they couldn't
Of
serve, they
course.
couldn't in the front if they fell into a sin, and they're going to this same church service on Bible class, when it was called Bible class, it's Bible study or whatever, but they're going to the same Bible class every week. They're going to the same Sunday service, Sunday morning, Sunday night, some people Sunday afternoon. They're doing this, hearing the same things they've been hearing when they were falling. when they're sat down, they're hearing the same thing. What are
Absolutely.
we doing that's going to restore them? Because if that same thing they were hearing all this time didn't keep them from falling, what is that same thing they've been hearing all this time that's going to restore them?
Ouch. Ouch, Nita.
I'm just
Ouch.
saying, like, to me, it's like restore such a one means you're doing something different to get them back, whether that's counseling, whether that's,
Mhm.
you're having, prayer with them, whatever it is, you're doing
Yeah.
something different to get them back. I just know in our circles, it wasn't nothing different. It was just sit down and cool off. But,
Ah!
and that would be the type of canceling, because
Yeah.
sat down but and again, it's not that you listen, if you're the pastor, the leader, you have that obligation to make
Absolutely.
sure that is the obligation. So I'm not negating that, but as a whole, the church to me looks at someone like, they have leprosy or oh no, okay,
That's
ooh,
true.
yeah, ooh, oh no, oh no. Instead of seeing them through God's eyes. And that's my whole thing. Let's see people through God's eyes because that's even going to help us. Even if we think somebody, oh, they're good, they're restored, they may not be. They may need more time.
Absolutely.
But it's still looking at someone through God's eyes to have that compassion because it's a compassion and the love we need to restore. Not just, oh, we're going to accept everything and everything's hearts and flowers. Love to bring them through. And
Yep.
that's my humble opinion.
That's good, Nita. My
Good.
question is, and this can be more of a personal perspective than just the church in general, but can you cancel somebody but still forgive them? Like, okay, so let me give y'all an example. Um, there was a person in my life who committed an act against me as a child. They were canceled. I eventually had to forgive that person, once I realized what happened and this was wrong and that sort of thing. I had to forgive that person, but they were forever canceled. Like forever,
So
forever canceled. Is that walking a fine line? Like, is that okay? Like, or is that something that God would draw us in, like, ma'ams, no. Because when I say cancel, like, don't know you, see you walk right by you, never speak to you, like, really, like, cancel. You are forgiven. Forgiveness. That King James. Your forgiveness. I put the ETH on it. So that makes it, I'm always forgiving you, but you're canceled to me. Is that okay? I need to know. And y'all help a sister out. Is that okay? Do I need to resubscribe to them? Do I need to uncancel? Uncancel? But what do y'all think?
I don't think forgiveness means you have to accept them back in your life the same way and all that good stuff. But you have to check your heart between you and God. Because if a person is canceled to that extent, does that mean you have forgiven them, or is it just listen? Let me keep them out of harm's way so they won't invade my life again. So that to me would kind of be a personal thing that you and God would have to just assess to make sure you actually have forgiven them and it's not this, oh, this person. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, me, I
Yeah,
have to check that with that because can't nobody cancel you like me. Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
can't
Answer it for
nobody
you.
cancel you like me.
that's why y'all are sisters.
Huh?
No, it's Nita's
I'm
worse
kidding.
than me. Like, I'll
I'm
forget
not
I'm
gonna
mad
lie,
at a
I'm worse
person.
than her. Like
I
I,
yeah, I
I have to bring that before the all the time. I have to surrender that and submit that to the Lord because I have a long like grace. Like I mean, I hold on for a long time, give you chance and chance for a long time. But when that grace is over, it's like it can be like you don't even exist. But
Mm-hmm.
I've had to, I'm still going before the Lord. I take that before the Lord because I know that's a proclivity of mine. So I take it before the Lord. That's why I'm saying you have to check your heart posture with the Lord to make sure you actually have forgiven them. But there are circumstances too that are very tragic that you
Yes,
don't need to have any
contact.
contact, any nothing with them, and that is warranted. You don't
Yeah.
have, like I say, you don't, that person doesn't have to be in your life to forgive them. You just want to always check your heart to make sure that forgiveness is still in your heart.
They are forgiving us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a situation, and usually I'm not like I said, Nita, well, like Nita said, she's more like that than me. I
Mhm.
will forget I'm mad at a person, so it can't just be something to where I'm mad at you. Heck, I stayed married to a guy for over 18 years, and I just kept forgiving him. So you know what I mean? Like, Lord God, that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But I'm more prone to just want to get back to a good space, a good vibe, good energy. Let's keep moving. Let's progress. Let's move forward, right? But if you do something to my kids, mighty God. If you do something to the children that I carried in my belly and gave birth to into this here God's green earth, it's another story. And I had a situation like that happen. And the Lord reminded me, like, ma'am, you didn't really forgive that girl. So this, and I'll make this brief, but this girl, she was in an altercation. She was a young woman. She wasn't a girl. We were friends at the time. She was in an altercation with her husband at the time, and he was at our house. Now, this was like during the time when my daughter was going through chemo. Like, we're trying to keep all things peace in our home. And
Mhm.
her ex, or her husband at the time, they were they were beefing, and she wasn't there, he was there, and she called the police and told the police that he was beating her, but he had been at our house for hours, like spent the night, was there all day. There was no way that what she told the police happened. The police came banging at our door, and it was like it sent my kids, who were like really young at the time, like 6, 7, 8, like they were really little at the time, into like trauma. Like they started panicking because 2 weeks prior, um we had just come out of like calling the ambulance for my daughter, and the police came in, the squad, the EMT came in a similar fashion. So it just triggered them again to that very sensitive moment. And she was used by the enemy to do that again, to cause more trauma for them, because she was mad at her husband at the time. Now, it's not funny, but the irony of this story is that this young woman, who I'm speaking of, ended up passing away in the same nature that my daughter passed. And I was never able to like reconcile with her because I canceled her. I forgave her, but sis was canceled. And I was like, just when I tell you, just this week, the Lord was like, you need to check your heart about that whole situation. And I felt terrible about it because at one point she and I were very close. I mean, we were very close. And I was just like, God, that even for the sake of defending my children, I
Yeah.
still have to, come to you with this matter. I'm just being vulnerable here because, like, I was like, I don't know you. I never knew you. Get away from me, depart from me. It was on some of that. But I'm not God. I can't condemn somebody. And I know she lived a saved life. She lived as a believer. So I know she's in heaven now. Thank God for that. But I know, you know, earlier in our life, it was that situation happened. So, amen.
That's very vulnerable,
Yeah,
of you. That's really courageous of you to say. And I understand because I know a little bit more about the backstory. I totally get it too. But
Canceled, forgiven, but canceled.
forgiven but cancel. I think that's why the Bible, God let us know through his word that the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? Meaning you don't even know your own heart.
Who can
You
know?
have to have God show you, like the old school, search me, Lord.
Every day.
You can know what is in, so he can tell you what's in your heart that you need to engage with him about and ask him to do it, because it's like we don't have the power ourselves to get us right. That's why we need God.
exactly.
So we have to go before him so he can shine a light on it. He's the one who's going to know what our heart, the condition of our heart.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. I think for me, right now in this moment, my truth is I think it varies from moment to moment about how you can cancel someone. And I think you just it's a growing area depending on how the situation affected your life, what it did for your life. Um, I'm going to say the Lord didn't tell me this. I think the Lord graced us in certain periods of our life to like literally cancel somebody. Like He'll give you that opportunity to say, okay, she need a moment because this ain't gonna go right if she don't get a moment, right? And sometimes our moments become 20 years, but which is not His intention. Not His intention, but that moment, it feels so much better to not have to face the truth of what this is. Even
Yeah.
understanding the reality that my life requires me to walk in forgiveness all the time, it doesn't mean I want to forgive today. It doesn't mean I want to forgive tomorrow or 10 years from now. But I think it's just a level of spiritual maturity on our part of how we approach that
Yeah.
and how we deal with it and how, I think one of the good things about my walk with the Lord is that my desire to love Him and stay in a good space with Him helps me to kind of gain the courage to face a lot of things. Um, and so when people can come out of the cancel box, because I'm not going to tell you who shouldn't be canceled and who can be canceled. I think that's like Nita said and Wendy said, I think that's something you need to talk to the Lord about. And He will get you to a space where that person is out the box. And God don't think like we do. So sometimes some of this stuff He like, girl, you're right. I'm kidding. she needed to be in a box. Nah,
Yeah, like he told Abraham, she need to go. Sarah was right. She need to go
right.
home.
You need to be in a box, and so sometimes the way we don't know the mind of God well enough that He will warrant some things. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was right in that area or whatever.
Mhm.
But I do think how you cancel and the boundaries you create with someone, you definitely should walk that out with the Lord. Are they permitted to be in your life again? The person may change. They may do this whole change and God is working on them and things like that. You may not still be ready for them. I think it's a space that you walk closely with God with. Because at the end of the day, I want to know that the Lord is pleased with what I do with my life.
Amen.
That's the goal.
Yes.
If that is the goal, not gold with a D, Andrea, if that is the goal with an L, if that is the goal, then I think your aspiration and what you do in life, you're not going to get it right, but you will always desire that your life is pleasing to Him.
That is so good. I love that answer, Andrea. That is good. You had me rocking like a mother in church. Even Nita, you had me rocking when you said the old folks say, "Search my heart, oh Lord." Listen,
Right.
woo, search my heart,
Lord.
oh God, search me. Hey,
Ooh,
But here's the thing that's kind of scary and should keep us grounded is because there go I, but by the grace of God. We don't know
Nita.
what we could have been opened up to, what demon could have influenced us to do these things. We don't a lot of these people don't even they're like, I don't even know how I got here. I don't even know how I did it.
Yep.
It is only by the grace of God that we haven't gone down some of those paths. And if you don't know that by now, keep on living, as my dad said, because honestly, that is a very sobering thought that I
It
could
is.
have been that. I could have been the one. I could have done that. I could have done that. I could have done that.
Absolutely.
That is just scary. I mean, it almost brings me to tears.
It
Yeah.
is. That does.
That
You're
could be
right.
That could be you. I remember when I was living in Georgia and I was working downtown and I would see these homeless people all the time. And my heart would just go out to them. Like, if you live in the suburbs, you don't see this, right? Like, this is in the city of Atlanta. And you're driving around and you can tell who is new, you can tell who's been there. And after working on there, I can tell you can see the person who just started out, they had everything with them. They had all their bags with them. And then you'll see them a month later and they have this one little bag and maybe a card. And you can tell that life
Wow.
like getting real out there, you know, 'cause you're like, these are all my important things. You're trying to carry them around, but reality hits in. I have no place to live. How am I? But my heart go out to them. And I was like, I am not far from that place though. One thing could happen in my life that would change the situation from me being in a home, in a car, and on the street. If I didn't have the support system I had, if I didn't have a dad to run to, if I didn't have a friend I could run to, if I didn't have a sister with an apartment that's going to catch all of us up in there for this 6 month period, I would be homeless. And so that's going back to what you were saying, Nita. Like, you have to realize that I am not far from that. It's the grace of God that my life turned out the way it did. And it's the grace of God that keeps me. It's his grace that keeps me, because my mind alone wouldn't let me end up on the street. My thoughts
Period.
would put me on the street.
Or in jail.
listen.
Because the way I be thinking sometimes is really like Peter, like we had said before. And I revealed to my sister a plot that I had to seek revenge on somebody that did
God,
something to my mom. And it was mafia level excellency.
I said what?
Thumbs up,
I might
thumbs
be
up.
somebody who cancels, but this her the way her mind thinks. I was like,
It was mafia level excellency. It was great. I had a plan. They did something to my mom, and I was like, "Oh, I got this, God."
Take them right on out.
Boy, but God
But
tapped me on my shoulder and was like, "I have plans for you, so you can't." And jail's not in them. I didn't plan jail, so wind that back, sis.
reel it on in.
But there
Yeah.
go I is the truth. That's the truth, you guys. And this has really been an enlightening, really good to discuss these types of things. You know, I know sometimes in the privacy of our homes with our friends, we might bring these topics up, but I think it needs to be spoken about more widespread in our culture as believers, because we don't, like you said earlier, Andrea, like everyone's moral gauge is their own,
Yes.
you know, and we need God to be our plumb line. We need to let him, he needs to be our measuring stick. And we definitely need to have these conversations more often, just so that we are displaying the love of Christ. You know, drawing the boundaries when boundaries are necessary, implementing reform, you know, corrective measures when that needs to happen, but also leading with love. So, we're charging that effort with God's vision for that person. So, you guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this. If there are no other final comments, anything burning on your heart that you want to share with the people, we'll go ahead and get out of here. But again, thank you all for watching and tuning in and listening, and let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts about what Jesus says about cancel culture? What do you think God says about it? And how do you think we as believers are handling that charge? So thank you for watching the show. You're with this crew, Anita, Andrea, and Wendy, and we say we are out. Peace out, y'all. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed our chat today, and stay tuned for next week's episode.